Hello, everyone. Welcome to our little training. Hi.
Hi,
So
good morning, good
excited.
afternoon.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello. Note taker.
Yeah, is that your note taker?
I know those note takers automatically ask for approval right when they come in, so I'm going to just decline all the note takers. Just as you're
Fine.
coming in, I want you to know that if you need closed captions, that's been enabled, so you can add that down at the bottom. Okay, and we're at 12 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to our 1 hour training on dissociation. We're super excited to have you here. Really quickly, I am Jessica Downs. I live in Grand Junction, Colorado, where I work and spend time specializing in complex PTSD and dissociation. I'm also one of the co-founders of Iris Training Collective.
And I'm Cassie Krajewski. I'm a licensed clinical social worker out of Denver in private practice. I also specialize in complex trauma and dissociation, but as it shows up as eating disorders and addictions and other kind of high risk behaviors, I'm really excited to be here with all of you today.
So good to have you. So as you're joining, if you'll notice on the bottom of your Zoom screen, the chat, if you'll all just tell us where you're joining us from, it would be so nice to hear and to know that. Just a nice little way to build some community. Okay, before we get started in our content, I just want to thank Next Therapist. They're the ones hosting us for the single CE training, and we love Next Therapists. We've spent time getting to know their lead clinician, and she's incredible. She's so thoughtful about all the humans and helping people find really nice like helping people looking for therapy, find really nice therapists, and their technology and product is really cool. So on that note, we're going to have Allison Dunn. She's the CEO. She's going to introduce herself, a little bit about Next Therapist, and then we'll dive into our dissociation training.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Jessica. We are so excited. These trainings have been great. I hope you have joined us for the suicide resilience one that's available on demand that Iris did for us last month. It was great. I learned a ton and took notes as fast as I could. But for a lot of you, this might be the first time that you have heard of Next Therapist. I want to tell you who we're not. We are not an online therapy provider. We're not here to take a cut of your session. What we are here is to help patients find you and to getting faster. We are a platform. We connect into your existing calendar and we allow patients to book directly with you. We do all the marketing. So if you're in Utah next week, you're going to see billboards up and down I-15. You'll see streaming services, and we want to direct those patients to you. So we hope that you will join us. There's going to be a link to our demo. You can look us up on socials, on our website, www.nexttherapist.com, all one word. You can download the apps from the App Store and see what the patient experience is like. Really, like Jessica said, we're therapist built and we're focused on making sure patients find the best therapist instead of just the one that's available. And so we hope that you'll join us. Again, we go live to Utah this next week. So if you're interested in letting us help you find more patients or managing wait lists or just anything that we can help you with, reach out. We've got lots coming down the pipeline to make a difference for patients. So thank you, Jessica and Cassie, for this time. And that's it for me.
Hey, yeah, such a good product. Thanks, Allison. And we are super, super grateful for this working relationship. This is awesome. Okay. I'm just gonna look over at the chat real fast. We have lots of people. If you guys want to see where people are coming from, maybe you have community members over there, but lots in Utah, different parts of Utah, California. Let's see, Colorado, Indianapolis. I think we have
Ecuador,
lots.
we're global.
Okay, we are.
Awesome.
Welcome from Ecuador, Sweden. Okay. It's good to see you all. We're so glad you're here. Let's go ahead and I want to start us out today with our training. We're going to just start with a little a little poll. Okay. I hope what this does is just kind of give you an idea of how normal probably your experience with learning about complex PTSD and dissociation, how normal it probably actually is. Can you all see the poll? Cassie, is that showing up on your end? Not yet.
Not yet.
Let's see. Okay, let me try again. Really, what we're hoping to do is give you this idea. Hold on, thinking and doing relaunch. There we go. Okay. So if you can take like 30 seconds and fill out this poll, and then I'm going to share the results with you, just so you can kind of see like how have we all learned about complex PTSD, assessment for dissociation. Yeah, just take a minute to do that. It's all anonymous. Also, just so you know, I'm not saving any names here. This is all just very anonymous. Okay, I'm seeing lots of answers coming in. I'll give you just about like 30 more seconds to finish this. Okay. Okay, as you're filling it out, just as you can see, we're looking at what best describes your training in assessing, your formal training in trauma and dissociation. And I mirrored this poll off of some research that's been done by Bethany Brand, and I just want us to see like how we're reflected in that research. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll here so that we can have a look at the actual content. Okay, so I'm sharing the results with everyone, and if you'll notice, during your graduate school work, 12% of you received zero training on trauma and dissociation, none, right? Some of you, 43, got a brief overview, one lecture or less. I would say that is probably my experience as well. 35% of you said you had one course that was trauma specific that talked about trauma and dissociation. And then 11% of you said it was a dedicated part of your training focus. How confident do you feel in assessing for dissociation in your current practice? 20% say not at all, which we're so glad you're here. This is a big portion of what we're talking about today. 48% say somewhat confident. 29% of you say moderately confident, and 5 say you feel good. You got this. And then this last question that I'm going to review here, and we can look at the words another time. But this last question here, which best describes your training in complex PTSD? 12% of you say none. 66% of you say you've had some exposure through ongoing education, continuing educations, or supervision. And then 23 say you've taken some specialized or advanced training. If we were to look at some of the details here, can you all see? Yeah, you can see my details here. Some of these are the words here. Here's our little word cloud, okay? These are some of the words that come up with dissociation. Really good stuff there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this, and let's go ahead and move into our content. I think we lost my screen share here. Give me 1 minute. Let's go back here. I'm sorry, I'm having just a little. Let me just start us over. Our little poll messed us up a little bit. As I'm talking about this, though, I'm just going to go ahead. Cassie, do you want to read just some of the actual results that came from the research while I'm setting up the screen share?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of us didn't learn about this, and this is verified by the research. So, in a study of clinicians who had an average of 12 years of experience in the field, only 32% of clinicians felt adequately trained to assess trauma, just trauma generally, and 25% felt adequately trained to treat trauma, so even fewer. 1 in 3 had never received training in treating dissociative symptoms. And of those who had learned about trauma and dissociation, only 26% had received that training through their graduate program. And 27% of individuals with dissociative disorders report having been challenged or disbelieved by professionals about the truthfulness of their traumatic experiences or dissociation. So many people, oh, here we go, Jess, you're getting it up. I see it. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, thank
Mhm.
you. That's perfect. So we just want you to see that this is so reflected. What you all shared is really reflected in this research. And I really just want to emphasize that like people enter into, I notice this all the time in consultation, just kind of this insecurity or uncertainty, like I don't know why I don't know this. This feels really hard, really confusing. Just a little bit of shame around that. And I just, and then we puzzle it together through workshops and consultation. But I just really want to emphasize this is an institutional failure, that there are reasons and barriers of why we aren't really understanding this. But it's yeah, it's a little tricky to get that education as we're seeing in our poll and here. So let's look at what some of those barriers to understanding are. So I'm just going to go over these kind of briefly, but I want you just to see kind of what comes up in you as we review some of these. So some of the barriers to understanding dissociation. One is this historical leaning toward metaphysical explanations. Before dissociation was really wrapped into the larger understanding and research around in psychology, it was really explained by like aliens, demonic possession, things that were kind of otherworldly or spiritual. And so some of those repercussions and those echoes of those biases carry through now. And so when somebody sees something kind of strange or uncomfortable or not really sure how to make that fit with their understanding of psychology, it can kind of pull on some of those threads that what is this? What am I looking at? How is this metaphysical? The other one is media portrayals. We have movies like Sybil and Moon Knight and lots of movies. And typically these people in these movies that have DID or high levels of dissociation, they are portrayed as really scary, as violent and otherworldly and so scary instead of human. This one here, this assumption that people are one-dimensional, that along with this kind of Western medicalized ideology, these are just some of the thinking biases of the Western world. So this idea that we are one-dimensional, that I am me, I have one set of eyes, I have one brain, I am this, or, if somebody does something bad in your life and you're like, he's a jerk, he's a narcissist, she's a whatever, right? We put these little labels and package them as one type of person. And so just that bias in thinking can limit our ability and capacity to start to see people as multiple or people as parts. So I want to do a quick little experimental kind of experiential exercise with this. I won't talk too much about it, but just to give you a little bit of some exposure to this idea. So we all come with our histories and wounds from our childhood. It's just part of what it is to be a human. And so I want you to just be mindful of what is maybe too sensitive or too raw for you, but I'm just going to invite you to surf with me, to kind of hover over some of the parts of you. And I'll guide you, I'll direct you so you don't have to think too hard about this, okay? So for just a moment, I'm going to invite you to turn inside. You can just kind of look off to the side, or you can close your eyes, whatever feels good. And just for a moment, I want you to really see yourself as the competent or learning therapist that you are. Notice the goals you have. Notice the way your body kind of holds that space. Notice how you know what to do, or when you don't, you can ask or get training. Just that really adult version of you. And I'm going to have you gently shift for a moment away from this more professional part of you. We're just going to hover over that angry teenager part of you. Just notice it for a minute. Notice what comes up in your body. Notice any feelings. And now I'll have you just gently hover over that little wounded part of you, a little wounded child. Just notice what that part does, what your body does, any feelings, any sensations, any pictures that go with that. And I'm going to have you move to a part of you that's either playful or a little competitive, maybe a cheerleader part of you, an encourager. And just notice what shifts as you bring that part of you to mind. And I'll have you just one more time. We're going to make one last shift all the way back to this professional learning therapist part of you. Notice how your body gets grounded. Notice how you're right here with us. And when you're ready, you can come all the way back with me. Okay. So if you can throw a quick reflection in the chat, what it was like for you just to surf among those parts. Did you feel shifts?
Oh shoot, you're frozen.
Did you feel any shifts? Did you notice anything pop up in particular for you? If you're willing to put it in the chat, I'd love to see your reflection there. For me, when I generally start to notice these parts, I can see, yeah, they're all connected, but ooh, there are shifts, right? Like one holds a heavier, like kind of sad, needs nurturing. Teenager me is still angry. Yes, right? Notice shifts, notice body sensation. This really, really shows up in your body. Exactly, right? Some felt compassion, right? You can notice we are not playing with these pretend things and we are not one-dimensional. And that's really key to understanding dissociation and kind of what happens with our clients when we're treating dissociation. Okay, so real quick, let's do some defining dissociation. This is a tricky one. Academic professionals, researchers have a really hard time defining this because it has a huge range of what it can be. Okay, so for the sake of this training and lots of the trainings that we do on dissociation, I want you to hear that number one, it is normal. We all do this. It is like the most healthy, appropriate thing that helps us manage and be okay in life, right? It's human. We don't want to get rid of it. It's not scary. It's a normal human experience. And the other thing I want you thinking about through this training is that there are really two ways that we understand it. One is what most people hear about in grad school, where it's like, ooh, lights are on, no one's home, right? I've checked out, I've gone away. Or I might think about dissociation as like, ooh, I am going to go binge watch this TV show because life is just too much for me right now, right? That is all dissociation. But really what we want to look at that will change your practice forever is the second one. And it's how the personality becomes organized due to an ongoing need to dissociate or disconnect from life, typically because of chronic trauma, chronic stress, right? And how things internally, our inner world, those parts that we just examined have to kind of separate so that we can tolerate living life.
Yeah, that's right. So to dig in a little bit more to this second form of dissociation, that's our focus for today. We can't talk about dissociation without first putting it within the context of complex PTSD or CPTSD. They're deeply intertwined. And I love this frame using all of these I words to kind of describe what CPTSD really is. Intentional interpersonal acts that are inescapable and cause injury that is potentially irreparable. So CPTSD is fundamentally different than single incident PTSD. So I like to think of CPTSD as like all the characteristics that you would find in a traditional DSM-5 PTSD diagnosis, plus these additional impacts to identity, regulation, relationships, in addition to traditional PTSD. And we often see CPTSD symptoms for those who've experienced these incidents and memories in childhood. So that could be as a result of neglect, abuse, coercive control, systemic oppression. These are all ways, as Jess was mentioning earlier, that become adaptations, ways to separate when that moment is overwhelming. Frank Putnam describes it as dissociation as the escape when there is no escape. And so we can get to the next slide. We'll dig in. Yeah, perfect. We can see the other ways in which CPTSD formulates. Just take a moment to look at some of these qualities here on the screen, CPTSD symptoms. How many of you work with clients like this, have CPTSD? You're all over here on the screen, so I'm gonna look. Yeah, most of you. Dissociation is a core feature of CPTSD. It's really prevalent, like I said, in people with complex childhood trauma. And it's highly correlated with high rates of abuse of all kinds, neglect, and it's more associated with more severe symptoms and, significant severe dissociation being a part of that. And it's important to recognize this in the whole constellation of your client, as it's so easy to misattribute symptoms and can be misdiagnosed. So if you look towards the complex comorbidity, you see depression, anxiety, psychosis, personality disorders, eating disorders, addictions. There's so much to assess and screen for when it comes to really differentiating what is what, so that we can better understand how to navigate and treat and pace that treatment. Generally, what I hope you take from this slide is that we hope you presume that any client that you work with that has CPTSD will have underlying dissociative traits. Okay, we can go to the fish, Jess. We love this image and this quote here at Iris from Carl Menninger. I've used the figure of a fish caught on a hook. His gyrations must look peculiar to other fish that don't understand the circumstances, but his splashes are not his affliction. They are his effort to get rid of his affliction. I love this because, I when I read this quote, I think of, another school of fish like swimming around in the ocean, and they might see another fish scampering wildly, flailing wildly, not understanding. And that school of fish is thinking, what's your problem? Just come down here and swim with us. It's all good. But what they can't see is the hook, right? And so to that fish who's on the hook, that makes sense, right? It makes sense to flail and thrash and do whatever you can to survive. But to those on the outside of it, it can be hard to see. And I love that as just a real compassionate approach to how dissociative symptoms or other symptoms of complex trauma can look and can be confusing, and yet at their core are extremely adaptive.
I love that one. Like, why can't you just get yourself to the doctor? Why can't you just show up on time? Why can't you stop firing me? Right? Well, we got a lot of thrashing. That hook kind of hurts. So, yeah. So I'm going to give you a few more statistics just for perspective, right? So dissociation and all these pieces that come along with it, they can be really, really hard to catch. They're on all of your dissociative folks with big dissociative profiles are on everyone's caseload. It's just part of, because like it's superhuman, right? But what I really just want to emphasize here, and this is a huge miss in the world of psychotherapy, that 29% of people in outpatient clinics have dissociative disorders, and of those people, 6% have DID, right? Probably way more than this because it's actually very difficult to catch. But you have to think about that. That's like 30% of people, right? And then of those with DID, the client will only make their diagnosis obvious 6% of the time. So if I see a client every week and I'm confused by symptoms and I've been treating them for depression for many years, and then all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, someone else's eyes get on this and we're like, whoa, have we screened for dissociation? Do we know what's going on? Why are we not making any treatment progress? Well, that can be really interesting and indicate potentially other diagnoses, right? So it's not that you see somebody switching all the time and you're like, oh, DID, right? It's at 6% of the time. Maybe for a couple minutes a session, you might get a clue, right? So it's very, very little. It's easy to dismiss that. And what the therapist will more often observe is a client experiencing many different symptoms of a variety of comorbid conditions. Like Cassie said, like maybe we have these sleep problems and depression and they can't feel their body and maybe they're a little avoidant and I'm probably just going to diagnose them with bipolar disorder or, I don't know, something. But it takes like this thin slice of what the full range of experience is. And so that's where we're saying, if you can understand dissociation, you get to really broaden your perspective of what's the internal organization of a client so that you could treat more effectively and accurately. Average years that a client will seek treatment before they receive a dissociative identity disorder diagnosis is 7 to 12. Right? So most of these people sit through 7 hours of therapy without accurately being treated. That's information, right? And as we see, our grad schools don't really teach us this. So we're really happy to be here to share some of it with you. All right. So when we talk about dissociation, we need to talk about it along the spectrum. Dissociation really spans an intensity. So if you look at, this goes from least severe to more severe, more complex levels of dissociation. So this is where I say it is so human to experience dissociation. This one here, checking out, you probably already did it. We've been in this 26 minutes and I super messed up the screen share and you're probably like, I gotta go. It's somewhere in my brain. I was going there. I was like, oh, the screen share. Anyway, this checking out, right? Kind of highway hypnosis, like, oh, I made it to the grocery store with zero recollection of my drive. Okay. That's normal. It's this kind of checking out, like happens regularly. We do it when we're bored, when we're overwhelmed, when we're not really practicing like present oriented mindfulness. Okay. Moving along the spectrum, we have this temporary stress response. This is when potentially things are a little too much in life, right? We might look at this as compartmentalization, like, okay, home life is a whole lot right now. I'm going to put it over here so I can show up and be a therapist, right? Or work is a whole lot right now. I'm going to put it away so I can show up and be a partner or a parent or my mom's dog, right? Or dog's mom, right? Whatever it is that we're going to be on our outside of work lives. That's just our temporary stress response. So when we're a little overwhelmed somewhere, we might numb, we might avoid, we might put it away, we might feel a little foggy sometimes. Time might feel a little weird, like how did this whole week go by, right? That's a little bit more progressed. Now, when we experience something kind of acutely traumatic, that throws us into a survival state. This is where we're going to experience more detachment from the present moment. That's going to look like depersonalization, like I'm not real. My body's not real. I've had people describe it as like, I feel like I'm watching myself. I'm observing myself. I've had people talk about their hands feel really big all of a sudden, or their head feels like they're floating above their body. Okay. Those are some of those more standardized pieces. Derealization, like the world doesn't feel real. The world does not feel real right now, probably for a lot of us, but a lot of people are operating currently in a survival state. And so this is the reality kind of collectively for a lot of people right now. A collapse, right? Like shut down. And again, this is about detaching from the experience itself. Now, moving along this progression, we're looking at this chronic activation of the survival state. This one here is where we talk about these three at the bottom is really what we're looking at today in our training. Chronic activation, this is where the DSM tells us what dissociation is, okay? This is their definition, that it's really this disruption in the integration of consciousness, memory, identity, emotion, perception, body, motor control, and behavior. This is where you see that whole range of complex PTSD symptoms because those survival states have been chronically activated. And the only way to survive them is to experience some type of alteration to our consciousness and our internal organization. It keeps us safe. Moving along the spectrum, we have where the personality starts to organize into disparate neural networks. So separate parts of self, right? Parts that have jobs, parts that show up to work, parts that tell you, ooh, that person is dangerous, run. Parts that manage Thanksgiving dinners, right? Parts that do all of the different things that we need to survive. And some of those are really adaptive. Some were adaptive and are proving to be less adaptive in the present, right? But this is where we really start to experience dissociative disorders, little time loss, hard to identify feelings, and it can look like a difficult client. Sometimes I put that in quotes, right? Because this is not a difficult client. This is a client who's never been able to turn inward and say, I wonder what I feel about this. I wonder what I think about this. And so when you're like, what does that feel like? And I'm like, I don't know. It's not difficult, right? We may be looking at these disparate networks. And then further along, we're looking at DID, an dissociative identity disorder, which was formerly multiple personality disorder. And this is where we're looking at the presence of alters and current time loss. I have zero recollection of last Thursday. I ended up down the road, far out of town, no idea how I got there, right? So that's indicating to us that maybe we are looking at DID. So I want to just encourage us all to take a step back for a minute and remember that all the things we see on the outside, right? The pleasing or the avoidance or some of these things that borderline personality traits, some of these things that can kind of turn us to like a little blamey or a little discontent in our therapy sessions, or even the things that make us feel inadequate as therapists. I want to emphasize, I love this quote by Judith Herman. She says, the clinical picture of a person who has been reduced to elemental concerns of survival is still frequently mistaken for a portrait of the victim's underlying character. So here we're encouraging, in all of our IRIS trainings, we're encouraging a shift from this diagnostic heavy conceptualization of clients to looking at these symptoms like that fish through the lens of what's happened to you, not what's wrong with you. And how did you have to cope, right? It's a lot of interesting, a lot of nice conceptualization pieces in there. A dissociative fugue would come into the DID, that farthest end of the spectrum, time loss. Good question. Okay. So this last little bit here, I just want to emphasize, it's all a strength. This is all done in an effort to cope, to adapt, and this was key to survival then. And maybe it's not serving my client now. That's why they're in your office, right? But we have to know, like, this was a gift. This was a gift from their brain that is like, I'm going to help you live through this. And then, right, we don't just grow out of those things. We have to kind of look at those networks, work with them, but seeing them for what they really are, which was key to survival.
Okay, so we're going to shift now into screening and assessment. And I want to emphasize before we dive into specifics of why that matters. So when you have an accurate assessment, it guides your case conceptualization, meaning it helps you understand how a client system is organized and what it needed to do to survive. And when we take the time to assess or screen well, we're not just collecting that data, we're using it to be responsive and intentional in our treatment planning and our pacing to have it match the client's window of tolerance. People can only benefit and get better in the relationship with dissociation if we as clinicians see it and can treat it in line with these guidelines. And when dissociation isn't screened, isn't recognized, we do run a real risk of certainly misdiagnosis, but potential harm. I mean, I've had so many clients over the years who've been misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder or bipolar or psychotic disorders, and they've received interventions for those disorders that's actually definitely unhelpful, but also re-traumatizing in some cases. And so I want to make the case to you that learning how to screen and assess and recognize dissociation is a skill to practice, and certainly can normalize that it's hard to recognize. Dissociation by its nature is hard to see because again, it's meant to be that way. It's meant to be tricky. And that's part of the survival strategy, right? So again, as we go into this screening, it's offering an invitation for you to learn and also practice compassion, that there's a process for our learning as clinicians, but also in working with clients that have dissociation and recognizing that. Okay, so moving into to the assessment or to screening, we really have three pillars. We're going to go through the core symptoms of, what are the symptoms that make up a dissociative profile, the experiences that underline that, and attachment history. And yeah, let's see. I think let's just move to the next one, Jess. We'll move a little bit quicker. Yeah, perfect. So dissociation disrupts awareness. It separates people from the present moment. And so because of that, people with dissociation often struggle to describe their inner experience. They might say, I don't know a lot, or they might appear flat or detached or vague. And so as we go through these symptoms and these screeners, they're good, and also they're not sufficient. There's some fluidity to it. Okay, so here are some of the core symptoms, and these are, based on DSM-5, these symptom clusters. And some of us might have seen these words before, but maybe haven't actually thought about what that sounds like. So I'm going to try and weave that in of what this could sound like or look like. So depersonalization, that's detachment or disconnecting from oneself. So that could sound like it's like I'm watching myself from outside my body, or I can see myself doing things, but it feels robotic, like I'm on autopilot, or my feelings don't feel like they belong to me. My voice doesn't sound like mine. Okay. Derealization would be more disconnection from reality. You see that word real, derealization. So detaching from reality or your surroundings or environment. That could be like living in a movie or in a video game, perhaps. So what that could sound like is everything feels kind of foggy, or like I'm in a dream, or it feels like I'm walking through a movie or through a looking glass. People's voices might sound far away, even when they're right next to me, right? So you can think about that in a therapy room. If you've ever talked to your client or been leading them perhaps through some kind of, meditation, and your client will say, it's like I lost contact with you. I couldn't really hear you. That's an example of potentially dissociation. Dissociative amnesia is more focused on how memories are disconnected from conscious awareness. So this would be outside of normal forgetting. This is like traumatic memory, missing chunks of time. And this would be also missing chunks of time after we've, in our development, been able to build the capacity to remember. So, after the ages 3 to 7, but this could sound like, how would this sound? Literally a client might tell you there are chunks of my childhood that I just can't remember, or that's completely blank. Or maybe their partner has told them that they said something or did something, but your client is saying, I have no memory of doing that, no recollection of doing that. Or they may say, I I sometimes forget whole conversations, or I actually have no idea what we talked about last week. Or I know something happened, but I can't remember the details of it. It's kind of like this imprint or an impression. Identity confusion is centering on this question of who am I? Like a sudden sense of uncertainty of who you are. unclear sense of self, difficulty knowing when you are across who you are across time, but also roles or situations. So, this is where you could see someone who's highly, highly functional at work, let's say, and yet in their relationships or in their life, they are very, very different. So this could sound like I'm not sure who I'm supposed to be, or it's exhausting to keep track of who I'm supposed to be. I don't know who I am anymore. Having this duality, sometimes I love my job, and other days I'm convinced I need to quit and move away, or even talking about having two parts of them or more than one part of them. And then lastly, identity alteration. This is like that behavioral enactment of that inner conflict. So acting like a different person some of the time or in distinct situations. So kind of, when you think about dissociative identity disorder or maybe how that's been portrayed, you see different self states, they look different or sound different, perhaps. And your client might say, sometimes I feel like a totally different person took over, or it's like someone inside of me has their own opinions and reactions, or I can hear different parts of me arguing inside, and sometimes one just takes over. Um, as you looked through those, you might already be starting to make some connections or questioning with some of your clients. Oh, I wonder if what I'm seeing or what I thought was there is actually maybe more of dissociative in nature. Um, let's go to the screeners. Screeners like this are ways that we can attempt to get some more data, some more information around what is dissociative or not. And like I said before, screeners are imperfect. However, they can be a place to start conversation or to start to weave in these conversations. And again, coming to these screeners from this place of all of these symptoms were once adaptive, but now dissociation in their life is somehow distressing or causing them problems. So these screeners here, we have them listed here. The DES, that's the dissociative experiences scale. The MID is the multi-dimensional inventory of dissociation. That is very long. There's a mini mid, and then there's the big mid that's almost 300 questions, I think. Very comprehensive. The SDQ 5 and 20, that's more focusing on somatoform dissociation. So somatic forms, how does that show up in the body? And then the DDIS, that's the Dissociative Disorders Interview Schedule, and that's more focused on the DSM-5. Generally, our recommendations are that you don't hand over a screener to a client. We're going to demonstrate this a little bit more in a video in a moment, but just take a minute to understand that, if someone has an inner conflict within them and they read a question on their own without you there with them, that could lead to a whole lot of, a certain part of self taking it that wants to appear a certain way, apparently normal parts or manager parts. Some of you might refer to those from IFS, where it's actually distorted information. So what we would recommend is perhaps do it more verbally and track and do it in a way in which it really gives space to explore it. And again, knowing that dissociation by its nature is difficult to assess and is kind of concealed and hidden. So it can be a process of this. So we're going to transition and show you a little bit of what this could look like with a dissociative client. You want to move into the video, Jess?
Yeah, it'll play as soon as I go
Okay,
on to
question
it.
22.
Oops,
Some people find that in
Oh,
one
okay.
situation they may act.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay, question 22. Some people find that in one situation they may act so differently compared with another situation that they feel almost as if they were two different people. Well, that would be ridiculous. I'm one person.
Are we? I mean, I always vote for burn it down.
Do burn things down.
Just burn it down because you don't want anybody to be close to you because you don't really know who you are.
I mean, I've been reading a lot of Brene Brown lately, and she tells me that I'm worthy of love. So We should probably say something about that.
Well, you don't tell me that ever.
Because you're not.
I think we're taking too much time. Look at her face. I think we need to answer. Let's hurry up.
Guys, we don't
Probably time
need
to
the
move on.
therapist. She's not gonna help us.
There are so many questions here. I could probably just move through this one and get to the next. And the arc of the information will probably like show what I need her to see. Yeah, I'm one person. I'm worthy of love. 10%. Number 27. Some people sometimes find that they hear voices inside their head that tell them to do things or comment on things that they are doing. I think those voices are just thoughts. Doesn't everybody do that? Just thinking.
No,
Thoughts?
we're crazy. Have been since high school.
You are
Well, I
crazy.
don't want her to see like how crazy we actually are. Like we don't want her to think we're too crazy and then stop working with us.
Yeah, there's an appropriate level to show up here at therapy. I really am just here to work on my relationship, just that. And really, it's mostly his fault. So she probably doesn't need to know all of that.
Yeah, maybe just say something positive so we can like be upbeat. They won't think too much bad about us.
Are you going to
She's
tell her
gonna-
about me?
Yeah, she's gonna find out about wounded one, and then we're gonna be stuck here forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a kid. I'm a grown ass 40-year-old woman. And really, I'm just here for the relationship. This isn't about my childhood.
No, you're fucking 40 years old. Let's get your shit together.
I know we have been coming to therapy for the same thing for like a long time.
Okay. Well, do you think we should probably move on?
I don't know. She's not gonna help us. Just say what we need to get her off our backs.
We're not fixable.
20 sounds good. 20%. That is low enough to not raise any red flags.
Yeah.
20%. Okay. Some people, number 7, sometimes have the experience of feeling as though they're standing next to themselves or watching themselves do something, and they actually see themselves as if they were looking at another person.
Hmm.
I don't know what that one means.
Yeah, I don't get that one.
Because you don't understand anything.
Whoa, why are you being mean to me? You know what? You all can handle this one. I'm gonna go.
Well, maybe we've felt like this sometimes, but we don't want to seem too helpless. And I mean, look at the therapist. Like they're going to feel so helpless if we tell them the truth. We don't want them to get overwhelmed with our case.
Yeah, she's just waiting there.
I don't think we need to worry about this grown ass woman's feelings. Sorry, I had to come back. That's not our problem.
She's the
You're gonna
only
push her
one.
away like you push everyone else away.
This is where maybe boundaries, like maybe I'm just gonna give her just a little slice of I mean, isn't that normal anyway? Just to like sometimes feel like a little exhausted and like a little like I'm just watching my life like a movie. That feels like surely everybody has that experience. I've seen that in movies. Of course, that's normal.
You're
Yeah.
exhausted because you're lazy.
I watch too many movies of
You're a lazy piece of shit who can't get off the sofa.
But why do I feel this horrible feeling when I'm about to write a low number on that? Something feels really bad. I don't know. I'm feeling a little spun out here.
Yeah. We're taking so long. They probably think we're being really difficult.
Oh, therapy. Why am I even doing therapy? Really, I could probably just register for this self-help program. I did see there was something about 6 weeks, and then you can get your 7th week free. I could probably just like lean into some nice worksheets and like Gosh, I probably don't really need to like expose all of this. I can just listen.
Yeah.
I know what to do. Lists. I'm going to just fill this out. I'm going to go sign up for this course with this master coach. Girl, I'm going to turn into a boss. That feels good.
Do it.
Feels right. I'm going to go low here. Let's just give her like 10%. Like this has happened before, but not to any of the parts that really pieces of me that really matter. Just, it's fine. Let's do a coaching program. 10%.
She'll like that.
Feels good.
Okay. You all do have access to this video in your learner account. It's in your when you just go, you'll have to go to that point in the recording. But yeah, just we thought it would be a good way to demonstrate like this inner stuff that happens, right? This idea that we are not all one-dimensional. There are lots of things happening at once. And I'm so glad to hear the angry teen is someone's spirit animal. Same. Okay. So this is where limitations, we have these big limitations with screeners, especially if you hand it to a client, but even if you're delivering it to a client, right? So we want to give you pillar 2 and 3 of other ways to screen for dissociation. This is a brief training, so we're introducing it to you. Of course, come learn more if you would like to learn more about how to use these. But really, this is where pillar 2 we look at, the second pillar of assessment and screening for dissociation is rooted in the experiences of a client. We're reading carefully between the lines. When things don't really make sense and they have somatic symptoms that can't be explained because of tissue damage, right? Or sleeping problems or intrusive symptoms, we start to ask, what is this hook in this fish that they are splashing around, right? What is it about sleeping that feels scary to the inner system? What is it about feeling my body that the rest of my body does not, like the parts of me internally do not want me to do, right? When we have multiple diagnoses, when I have somebody come in and say, like, I've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and ADHD and anxiety and OCD, I'm start to say like, ooh, people got those thin slices. I'm reading between those lines. What is the bigger, broader picture here? So we start to tune into what might parts of self be doing to keep this person safe. What might be happening internally, okay? So this another quote that we love here that just kind of really encourages more self-compassion, but this is Judith Herman again. All too commonly, chronically traumatized people suffer in silence because people don't believe them. Okay. But if they complain at all, their complaints are not well understood. They may collect a virtual pharmacopoeia of remedies, one for headaches, another for insomnia, another for anxiety, another for depression. None of these tend to work very well since the underlying issues of trauma are not addressed. And so we're hoping by teaching you some more screening and encouraging more learning that you'll kind of join with us in doing kind of this broader, more comprehensive treatment that really gets to the root of what is causing suffering, rather than this little pharmacopoeia of like, oh, you can't sleep? Here's a pill. Oh, you have headaches? Let's practice mindfulness, right? Like these all matter, but if we don't have that broader clinical picture of how might this be an internal organization of dissociation, then we might be missing something really important. This last pillar that we just want to mention is that we really need to get a clear picture of what things were like when you were little. And this might be our most reliable pillar because we have this huge body of evidence that dissociative disorders originate from early childhood experiences, and that early developmental trauma is also associated with the genesis of PTSD and sleep disorders, mood disorders, psychosis, OCD, substance and addiction-related disorders, right? This is all at the root of these things, because if you put your mind in the position of a little kid and life is intolerable, whether that's abuse or neglect or scary things happening all the time, what options do I have? I'm too little to fight, and I can't run away, right? So I have this collapse response. And if I have to collapse and make myself small and do all these things, all this internal contorting to make myself safe as a little kid, that's really important information about probably how I'm wired and internally organized as an adult. Okay. So when we screen for attachment, we're really looking at, and I can actually add a nice attachment screener to your learner accounts because I think this is important. We're not looking at how the adult reflects back at their childhood. We're looking at what was the experience of the child. All too frequently in supervision and consultation will say, what do you know about their attachments? They say, oh, they have a good relationship with their parents. It's a little distant. It was hard then, but they've repaired it now. I'm like, that tells me nothing about what it was like for that 6-year-old to endure years of substance use at home or whatever things were happening at home, right? So we need to know what was it like then to give us a clue of how am I internally organized now. Okay. So we really push for parts work to be able to do this work. This is widely agreed that, a lot of people will tell you, right? Research tells us that using parts work, whether that's IFS or ego states work, at Iris, we train a lot of ego states work. It's woven into every single one of our trainings. But the idea of working with parts, just like you saw in the video, and just like you experienced as you surfed your own parts, is that it normalizes multiplicity of the mind. And it respects the inner logic and just all of the ways that we are wired and kind of put together carefully because of our need to survive when we were little. And then we can really carefully address each part appropriately, developmentally, where those parts are in age, what they learned, what they experienced, and it really aligns with how the dissociative system is actually organized.
Yeah, and I love this visual that Jess created where it's really illustrating, one of the gifts of parts work is that it gives us this space and this accuracy. And by doing that, we slow the process way down and it allows us to make contact with these parts, these young parts, these adaptive parts, these, risky, scary, risk-taking parts. But it allows us to create a connection with them and work at their pace. And in the spirit of that, I wanted to orient you all to a tool. And you experienced some of this with, Jess's activity in the beginning of some of your own parts that exist. And I think this exercise can help you get to know a little bit more of, your dissociative parts or these patterns that exist for all of us, including we therapists. So we all dissociate. It's just human to dissociate. There is a handout in your learner account at your at iristrainingcollective.com, a handout that is an exercise I invite you to do for yourself, but also to do with your clients. I've put my own dissociative patterns here on display for all of you, which are the ways in which I separate, I try to escape. And some of that's really adaptive. Not all of these are maladaptive. I have 2 kids under the age of 5, and it is such a delicious, yummy experience after they go to bed to just like sit in the chair and like stare out into space for 5 minutes. That is a really nice thing for me and my system. And to stay stuck there probably wouldn't be super adaptive, right? And so this is why in the second column, we invite reflection around what are the things that you can do to help you return to the present moment. And that could be through grounding in any sense of the word, orienting, and so on. So I've listed some of the ones that I do myself, but what a powerful tool to offer ourselves and also offer our clients. And I really think we can support our clients the more that we know our own systems and engage in the practice and the process of learning our own dissociative patterns. And the most helpful thing that I think we can lead with our clients and with ourselves is how we behold that part. How do you relate with it? How are you staying curious? What's the function of that for me? Even if it feels like a really resourced part for you, right? Maybe you're like, there's no problems with this. And yet, maybe there is some kind of function that would be worthwhile. The more that we can relate with compassion and curiosity and not banish parts, that's only going to create more safety and connection and space for us to work with it in a really therapeutic way.
Yeah, we really hold to this. No matter how grotesque, how scary, how suicidal, how homicidal, how some of the behaviors that really challenge where we stand morally and ethically, right? We're not condoning behavior by holding that there are no bad parts. We're trying to understand the function of survival there. And so we root ourselves and anchor ourselves in this truth that there are no bad parts. All parts are there to serve the whole. And they were once adaptive and now they're no longer adaptive. So we want to give you a little nudge here just as we're wrapping up. Just to really lean in. You do not have to be perfect. You do not have to do this with tons and tons of expertise, but start to bring in some of this curiosity with your clients. Use this beautiful worksheet that Cassie designed. It is in your learner account to start to understand your own dissociative profile. That is the most skilled clinician I know, is someone who is ongoing exploring their own work and their own self within that context. So if like, oh, when I feel anxious about a session, what do I do? Do I explain a lot? Right? Or when I feel a little bit of dread, do I welcome cancellations and give reasons to just like, oh, it's okay, we'll schedule next time? Or if I'm feeling bored, what do I do? Right? These are our own parts giving us information about how we're showing up in session. And so get to know your own parts, how you show up in those sessions, and it will help you so much in the way that you approach it with your clients. We want to kind of wrap here. Go ahead, Cassie, you can wrap us up.
Yeah, I mean, I have had so much fun being with you all today. And yes, I want to be with you all for, 10 more hours to talk about this. So if you find yourself really curious and wanting to deepen, we invite you to join us for a training. We offer advanced trainings for clinicians on complex trauma and dissociation and lots of different topics. And we have some upcoming trainings that we think you'll be really excited for. So if you follow us on Instagram or sign up for our emails, you can stay connected with us and also get some discounts for those things. And we'll help you with the how to do this in your sessions.
Yeah, and those CEUs will populate to your learner accounts. That's where you're going to get it. And you'll have access to this recording, the materials that we mentioned. And again, thanks for sharing this space. We hope to see you again soon. For lots of you, you asked a question about how do we get more of this. Early December, we have one on this content extended into 6 CEs. So you get lots and lots more. We really want to give a big thank you to Next Therapist. You guys, they're awesome. Most of you are from Utah, and just keep an eye out for their marketing. And we're super grateful for them hosting this really special training for you guys. And what a treat to spend time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Happy
y'all.
Friday.
See you later.